Frank DiMino once again, and this time he is talking about his band Angel. How did Angel even become a band?
Angel started in DC. God, it's very. Mickey and myself worked together in a band called Max. We go way back, and Mickey and Punky worked in a band called Bucks, and then Barry left and worked with the Cherry People after Punky had left the Cherry People. So it's been like
that band tree would be a difficult one to put together.
Yes, yes. But what happened was when we decided to put Angel together, I think the fact that we all were in these bands that were popular around the DC area, it was kind of like a local kind of, the word supergroup, I mean, for a local band, I guess,
The best of the local.
Yes, so it's tough to use that word, but that's the best thing I can think of right now. But yeah, so it drew a lot of interest because we all had our own bands in that area. So when we put Angel together, we knew all the club owners. And the club owner that owned Bogies, all of us had known for a long time, and he wanted us to open Bogies for him. So he said, you guys can rehearse upstairs for as long as you want. When you're ready, we'll bring you downstairs to the club and we'll announce it and we'll do a whole thing. So we said, okay, fine. So we rehearsed upstairs for, I guess a month. Writing stuff, getting all the material together. And we did 2 shows a night at Bogies. We had an opening act for us, and it was a club. So we kind of treated it as a show, and that's how we started putting all the show together. The ideas that we had kind of stemmed from those club shows that we did in DC. So.
How long before Casablanca came knocking in?
Well, what happened was Gordon Fletcher, who wrote for Circus and Rolling Stone magazine, he wrote reviews, album reviews and live bands. He did reviews for that. And he was always would come to Bogies because he lived in DC. So he said, listen, I do a lot of shows. I have to do a lot of reviews for live shows at Largo Arena, which was the big kind of the Madison Square Garden for DC. He said, if I can, I'm going to bring like some of those bands down here to see you guys because I think they should see you. I said, well, that would be great, Gordon. I mean, I think all of us would love that. So what happened was he brought some bands down, and one of the bands he brought down was Kiss. So we talked with all the guys. Gene, they watched the show, and then we all went to the dressing room. They came in, and we talked and stuff. And Gene at the time wanted us to sign with Aucoin, but we said we just signed our management deal. It was going back and forth between David Joseph and Lieber and Krebs. We were going to sign with Lieber and Krebs, but we ended up signing with David Joseph. And this whole conversation with Gene and Kiss happened like 2 weeks later, so we had already been signed, and we were already going to head out to LA. So he said, oh, that's fine. He said, well, congratulations, and hopefully we'll see you sometime, this and that. So we said, fine. So we move out to LA. We start rehearsing all the stuff, and David says, listen, I want you guys to go in the studio and start recording, because I'll get the record deal. You just concentrate on the music. And he said, I'll get the producers worked out and all that stuff. So he had Big Jim Sullivan and Derek Lawrence from Deep Purple. Big Jim Sullivan was a legendary guitar player in Britain. He did all that stuff with Jimmy Page, all that studio stuff, James Bond. He did all the pop stuff. He did whatever Jimmy Page didn't do, he did. So he did all that stuff. Great guitar player. So we went ahead and started working on the album at Wally Hyder. And while we were doing the album, David said, what do you think about Casablanca? So we said, I don't know. Kiss is on the label. Kiss hadn't broken yet. It was the 3rd album, Dressed to Kill. So we all said, well, let's meet him. Let's meet Neil. So he said, well, let me call him first and see if we can arrange something. So David called Neil, and Neil said, well, I'd like to see the band play. And David said, well, I don't think you have to do that because the guys in KISS already saw them play. So they know what they sound like. So he said, really? Well, maybe I could put them on a show with them or something. And I said, well, and David said, I don't know if they'd want to do that. And what happened was, he said, well, you talk to Gene and Paul and see what they want to do. So evidently Neil talked to Gene or Paul or both of them, I don't know. And Neil called David back. He said, I don't have to see the guys, I'll sign them. Let me, just let me hear the music and let's do a deal. So we did the album.
Which is, if you want to show it.
It was this album.
Yep.
And what happened was, as we were talking to Neil, John Carter from Capitol and Rupert Perry from Capitol approached us and they wanted to do a deal. So Capitol was a much more solvent record company at that time. Casablanca hadn't broken with anyone yet. And so what we did was we said, okay, let's finish the album. We finished the album. We went to see John Carter and Rupert Perry at Capitol. We were ready to sign with Capitol. And what happened was John started saying that he wanted a little bit more guitar here, a little bit more keyboard here. He was kind of talking as if the album wasn't done. And we were going, no, this is done. We're not going back and remixing, And so it was kind of a meeting that we kind of felt, uncomfortable with after the meeting was over. We sat down with David and said, I don't know if this is the right direction we want to go in with these guys. I don't know if they really, want to do. It seems like they want us to do what they want to hear and stuff. And we were young too. So it was one of those things where, we thought, well, I don't know if it's the right thing to do. So David said, well, let's call Neil. Let's talk to Neil one more time before we have to make the decision. If Neil doesn't want to do it or can't match the deal that we have at Capitol, then we'll work with these guys. I know John, I know Rupert. We can work with them. Okay. So we set the meeting up with Neil again. We go to Neil's place, the Casablanca Rectory, which at the time was in a house on Sherborne. And we go into Neil's office. We say hi again, and this and that. It was nice to see you again, and this and that. And Neil said, okay, before we play the album, I want to call everyone down in the record company down here. So he called everybody in the record company to come downstairs into his office. Everyone comes downstairs. He has these huge speakers in his office, right behind his desk. He goes, okay, we're going to play the album now. But before we do that, he rolls up this big joint, lights it up, passes it around, puts the record on, does not say one word, lets the whole side play. After it's done, he looks at everyone and goes, I want this album. And that's what we wanted to hear. That's all we wanted to hear. He didn't want to change anything. He said, I want this album. And we said, this is where we want to be. So David worked on a deal with Neil, and we were on Casablanca Records.
Obviously, you didn't stop there. So what happened next? The next album.
It was always nice to deal with Neil. Neil was just a great guy. He in our first contract, this is in '75, he had a paragraph in there about videos, and we were going, videos? What is that? We're not doing videos. And what happens is 2 years later, we're doing a video, So at that time, they were promotional videos. They weren't like, the videos became with MTV,
Sure.
But yeah, we went from the second album to the third album with Eddie Kramer. Working in the record plant in New York, I went back with Eddie to do that, to do vocals and to mix it as well. And the fourth album was with Felix. That was the first album with Felix.
Can you actually show these records and then say a few things so that way?
This would be the first one.
Yep. So we spent a lot of time talking about that one.
This would be the fourth one. That's the one with Felix.
Yep.
That was the first one with Felix. This is the fifth album with Felix. That's the fifth studio. This is the live album that we did, a double live album. It was live without a net. we had that title first.
Yeah. Right. So how would you even describe the rest of your career? Like, what happened? I mean, obviously that you guys were climbing up and up,
Yeah.
and
When Neil sold Casablanca, we were still locked into Polygram, and we were dealing with a lot of people that really didn't know us, and we didn't know them. And Jack Douglas was going to produce that next album. And I had talked Jack into doing it. I asked him to do it, to put something, because he was doing another project, and he put that project aside, pushed it back so he could do the next Angel album. And when it came time to do it, Polygram didn't want to pay. They excuse me for 1 second.
Talking Angel.
Yes. So Jack was going to do that album, and what happened? Polygram didn't want to pay the escalation fees, which was they were supposed to, after 2 points, they were going to take the next half. Then we would pay half. If it was 4 points, they would pay one, and we would pay one. So we would take care of the first three. It gets cloudy after that, you know. And of course the production fee was going up, and they didn't want to do that either. So we were in arguments going back and forth about that. You know, we didn't want to lower a lower production fee for an album that, you know, that we had just done one, and we're not going to take less to do it. It comes out of our money anyway, however you look at it. So
Sure.
and they didn't really want to do that. So it was back and forth, and then Jack said, "I gotta go. I can't wait any longer. I don't want to lose this other project." So Jack had to back out of the Angel thing, and at that point it started getting very, very weird, and we tried to go back. We tried to leave Polygram to go to Boardwalk, which Neil was opening, and that didn't work out because Polygram didn't want to release us from a contract, and we were just stuck. We were just stuck there. It's kind of the classic thing that
A lot of
every
bands
band-
went through that. A lot of bands.
Yeah.
One thing which I always wonder about, the band was very popular in the United States and Japan. How come there was never really much push for Europe?
In Europe?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I mean, Japan was great. I mean, we were like the Beatles in Japan. It was great. I used to say, how come it's not like that anywhere else? I mean, it was crazy. We were doing television shows, and they had to put newspaper on the glass doors because the fans were banging on the door. We had decoy limos and stuff. It was crazy. It was great. We did 2 nights at the Budokan, 2 nights in Osaka. It was great. Yeah, I wish we had done more stuff in Europe.
So, when the band broke up, what was happening afterwards?
Everyone kind of went on their own, their little, you know, went on their different road.
But you did regroup for one more record, which was...
Yes,
Yes.
and there were different incarnations. You know, Barry and Punky and Greg did something with Ricky Phillips and Fergie Fredrickson, and I did something with Barry, Punky, and Paul Raymond. Paul Raymond was a good friend of mine, and Paul Raymond and I did an album in Japan as well with Masayoshi from Loudness. So everyone went on their own way, and I did a lot of studio stuff at that time. That's when I did all the Giorgio stuff. So everyone kind of went on their own little path.
Despite the band being gone, the people are still very fanatical about Angel. The people I saw today who came to your meet and greet, they had original T-shirts, necklaces. I mean, they had stuff you could not make up. My friend Randy came with pictures from the 70s. So you can't buy that type of dedication.
Absolutely.
There may not be a lot of those fans, but they are extremely
really
dedicated.
And it's one of those things where I was just talking to someone else about that. It's just, when it comes to Angel, there's either fans that know and love us, or fans that don't know us at all.
There's no in between.
There's no in between. It's crazy.
So I think the big question is, will there ever be a chance of Angel ever stepping down on stage?
I don't know. I don't know and I don't have the answer to that. I mean, you know, we've talked about it more than we ever have. Scheduling is very difficult because we haven't been together in such a long time. Everyone lives in different places, and everyone is involved in their own lives now. So if there's a possibility of it happening, it's more now than it ever has. But I don't know. You know, I don't know. And the other thing is, if we do it, we want to do it right. So that's got to be. It's gonna take time to do it. You know. So we'll see what happens.
Finally, what would you say was the best thing about being an Angel?
I think growing up with the other four guys, together. You know, we were very young when we started, even back in D.C., knowing each other and playing in different bars. Once we put Angel together, going through that whole thing together was great, I think, for all of us. And I think we all have something that we all hold dear to us, very close to us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.